All right, Kennedy, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the session, Beyond COVID, an inclusive Drupal virtual event platform that just makes sense. We are thrilled you could all join us today to talk about our experience building a virtual event platform. We think that there is a world of opportunity in the virtual event space, and we hope you can learn a bit about our recipe for success and maybe inspire you to build your own. First off, just to introduce ourselves, we are from Teote Creative, a full-service creative agency, and our bread and butter is Drupal web development, but we have delved into virtual events. My name is Kennedy. I lead the production and business development for our new virtual event vertical.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Scott Spector. I'm the Director of Accessibility and Quality at Teote, and of course, popcorn machine mechanic. Should it go, should it break at any point in the office? And super excited to be here to talk to you about this conversation with Kennedy, and looking forward to walking you through some things.
Thanks. So first off, what got us hungry for virtual events in the first place? Of course, the COVID-19 pandemic turned the world of meetings and events on its head. Many of our clients were forced to quickly pivot gatherings of all kinds into a digital space, and they turned to us as their partners for support. So that immediate need is what really initially stirred our appetite. However, as we move beyond COVID, and we're all increasingly optimistic for the return of in-person events, it's no secret that the conversation about needing to be in person for business has changed. So we don't think hybrid events are going anywhere for a lot of reasons. First, hybrid events are really flexible. You can have the best of both worlds. You can provide both in-person and virtual options to reach the attendees, sponsors, and presenters that you like, regardless of their ability or preference to travel on site. And especially now, it's still difficult to plan for the future of COVID several months or a year in advance. So planning for a hybrid event covers all your bases, however things progress in the future. Second, inclusivity and accessibility is incredibly important. We realize that a custom event platform on Drupal can create opportunities to include people in countless ways that an in-person event just can't. Scott will go more in depth with this in just a few minutes. And one of the most impactful business factors that drive virtual and hybrid events is sponsorship opportunities. Especially when developing something entirely custom rather than using an off-the-shelf product, you can create unique options for sponsors to interact virtually. Sponsor activations include not just the strategic placement of messages, logos, and ads throughout the platform, but unique activations can include videos that must be watched at certain points in a user flow, one-to-one video conferencing with attendees, and custom calls to action and lead generation campaigns. For example, one of our clients is a nonprofit professional association, and 90% of their total operating budget is generated through the corporate sponsors of their one annual event. So that just goes to show you the business case for really catering to the specific needs of sponsors. And of course, increased attendance by having a digital option in addition to an in-person event is a huge revenue generator. Even though people aren't going to pay as much for a virtual event, you can have a much larger volume of attendees. And finally, we want to be honest and admit that virtual events get you out of a lot of the worst parts of an in-person event. As any conference goer or event planner knows, there's always problems with finding somewhere to charge your laptop, and you're probably going to need duct tape at some point throughout the day in person that you just don't have to worry about. So for all of those reasons, we were thinking, hey, virtual events are a really good idea, and there's definitely a demand in the marketplace. And then after a lot of research into all of the virtual event platforms out there, we got to thinking, why can't we make our own? And if you're part of a talented Drupal team, you should be thinking the same thing. From a technology standpoint, Drupal is a reliable, stable, and flexible platform that's well suited to be tailored into an event platform. And there's no need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to video conferencing. Zoom, YouTube, Vimeo, live streaming, broadcast software are all best-in-class tools that are easily embedded or integrated into a Drupal site. And from an organizational perspective, you need mostly the same tools and expertise you already have for standard web development projects, UX, visual design, and development. All it takes is the creativity and flexibility to dig into a new type of product. Scott?
Yeah. So thanks, Kenny. And now I'm talking you through some of the, what we call our key ingredients, or what you should call probably, your core components of how we built this thing out. So we want to share with you a couple different ways. So I'm going to go down this list. And first and foremost, of course, your three kind of primary pillars of this event setup in Drupal are, of course, your live stream, your sponsorships, and your agenda and session pages. As you see here on the top left, obviously, this is where people come. This is why people came to your event. So you have this big, beautiful live stream area, as Kennedy was kind of alluding to, whether you StreamYard, Zoom, Vimeo, or even Twitch. There's all different ways, but the important thing is, of course, you feature this prominently. And sponsors, of course, you see those all over both of these examples. These are all custom. They were all kind of requests from clients. And of course, we've created our own little special brand of them as well. And of course, agenda and session pages, these analytically speaking are our highest traffic pages. So interestingly enough, spending the time there makes a lot of sense. And of course, login and registration. Anyone who's put on a virtual event can tell you login and registration is easily probably one of the biggest headaches. Your event's only going to be up for probably a week, but login and registration could last months. So getting that stable and getting that not just stable, but easy to use from a UX standpoint is extremely important. And of course, we're here to you as the CMS owner and as the administrator and the producer of this event will be there to run it. But of course, making sure that your client has an intuitive way to go through and manage the event themselves, or of course, just for your production team, makes a lot of sense and is worth the extra time. And of course, if someone runs into any issue using your platform, you want to make sure there's a help desk there available to them. And last but not least, of course, we have, what we find that a lot of clients, are more and more putting a lot of time and frankly budget into is this production value. Kennedy mentioned this idea that we're talking about hybrid events here. We're not just talking about virtual. And as you can see here in the example, one of our clients chose to, and this is actually Tim McGraw for one of our clients for the country radio station broadcasters. And they chose to kind of do this hybrid event where they had Tim McGraw and a full live band in a studio, of course, COVID safe, within this virtual event platform, really made it come alive in a pretty spectacular way. And of course, there on the left-hand side, you see chat, polling, and QA. Again, this was super active, and it's a way of making you feel like you're there without actually being there, and interacting with your peers in a way that you just can't necessarily and by other means. And of course, don't forget your analytics. As far as measuring sponsorship conversions, you want to make sure that you have all those triggers and everything where you need them. And of course, accessibility. Kennedy mentioned it, so I won't talk too much for it. I'm going to go into it a little bit more in a second. But make sure that you have everything you need to make this thing functionally accessible. I can tab through it with screen readers and everything above. And of course, make sure that you have all marketing and lead generation baked in. This is not just a dev project. It's not just a production project. It's kind of this full service thing that you want to keep in mind on. How do we get people's information to send them more information later on? So that is our key ingredients. And real quick, just to play on your heartstrings a little bit about accessibility and inclusion, it's not just something that we talk about. It's not just something you go to some sessions and try and build into your work. There's real value here. 18.1%, so about 1 out of every 6 people in the United States identify with one or more disabilities. That's 51.2 million people. And for example, if you are basically, if you're running a virtual event or a hybrid event for an older audience, 42% of that older audience probably has one or more disabilities. So you need to keep this in mind, and it's not an afterthought. It needs to be thought of from the beginning. And of course, from a empathy aside, this is a $490 billion market cap for spending value. So you want to make sure you don't leave to the wayside, and you encompass all these principles as you build this thing out. And so just to kind of show you, the things that we keep our eye on for the most part, kind of our 6 main tasks, if you will, as we do this, make sure you have transcriptions and closed captioning, which the Drupal team, of course, that as we're talking now, does an incredible job of as it is. So a lot of lessons to take from them. Make sure accessible supporting materials, maybe, allow users as they're registering to elect to tell you what their disabilities might be, so you can provide them with custom tailored content. They can get the same look and feel with all the same content. Code markup, of course, use ARIA labels as liberally as possible, make sure people can navigate. Google Translate, especially if it's an international conference. And make sure that the speakers are trained to give that plain language content and can speak in a way that caters to all types of disabilities. And of course, especially if you have a predominantly deaf audience, or of course, if you just want to make sure you batten out all the hatches, make sure there's a sign language interpreter as well. Just like you see on TV when anybody public is speaking.
So all in all, what take away from this talk today. First, that virtual and hybrid events are here to stay. They make any organization's event more inclusive, accessible, flexible, and profitable by increasing the audience, creating unique sponsor activations, and extending the value of a lot of your content through on-demand access. By leveraging your existing Drupal expertise, you can create a virtual event platform that moves the needle for your clients or company with no annoying lanyards necessary. Scott, did you have a couple words?
I just want to kind of also follow up on that just by saying, don't necessarily think of this as turning a physical event into virtual one-to-one. There's so many capabilities and things to take advantage of the second you go digital. Increase sponsorship retention. XYZ element of P, you name it. It's probably a new and unique way you can do that on the web. So kind of go back to the drawing board, pull out your core principles there, and then kind of approach the design of the virtual event that way. Don't go one-to-one, or you'll frankly probably run into some of the same roadblocks we did early on.
Yeah. And so overall, thanks so much for joining us today. Scott and I are really genuinely excited about the world of opportunity that's out there when it comes to building custom virtual event platforms. They can be beautiful, innovative, and so highly impactful to the bottom line. I hope we've gotten your gears turning about how your organization may be able to lean into hybrid events and building a Drupal platform. If you schedule just a short brainstorming session with a couple of designers and a couple of developers, I'm sure that you won't leave with any shortage of exciting ideas. And so with that, we have just a couple of minutes left if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, I'm keeping my eye on this Q&A side of the chat, and we'll wait 30 seconds, see if anything pops up. So what are the pros and cons of using this platform instead of something like Hopin? I will give a really brief answer, then Kenny, I'll pass over to you if you have any thoughts. But for me, at least, the biggest thing that we that this kind of platform gives is just so much flexibility. We more often than not, do clients come to us and say, we love, and frankly, they say these are all the things we love about Hopin. Pardon me. These are all the things we love about StreamYard. And this just kind of makes a way to fit it in a custom sense. We can tailor it to that exact need. And of course, once you get a couple of those out of the way, you have a pretty intuitive and feature-built platform itself. So, I am not here to bash on Hopin in any way. It's a phenomenal platform. All I'm saying is that there's some custom features that you can add in there to give a little bit of flair for your client's brand and their audience, more specifically, rather than the broadness that these super robust platforms give. Kenny, anything to add there?
Yeah, I think I would just reiterate what you were saying is something like Hopin has a huge amount of infrastructure, and a lot of the different tools involved are all wrapped in. So the video conferencing of how we are talking to you and the Q&A and just kind of all the technology involved is really wrapped into Hopin. Whereas if you're using a custom Drupal platform, you're going to be leveraging some different technologies. However, the pros are, just a high level of customization. So that may be the logistics of production, or that may be sponsor placements or branding. That's I think the biggest one is just the visual branding and ability to say yes to questions for how to change things up. The next question is, what kind of scale or budget would an organization or company need to be at to create a custom Drupal platform versus an off-the-shelf solution? That really depends. I guess if the question is the kind of budget difference between going in and having a project like this where you would be getting a custom platform built versus using something like Hopin, in my experience, I think that it depends on your options, but I know that in some cases, we have been able to build custom platforms at a lower cost than clients have been quoted from larger off-the-shelf platforms. So I definitely don't think that there's a huge budget difference. However, if you're doing a smaller webinar type of project where you're in the four-figure range, then you probably should stick with something more off the shelf.
Yeah, and I know we're basically at time here, so the only thing I'll add on to that is, it really, I think what we found the most, it just depends on the kind of features you keep adding onto it. Not unlike any other platform like Hopin or StreamYard or anything in between. We've had some clients come to us and say, we need a CVent integration, or some kind of third-party service. And of course, the more and more you tack that kind of stuff on, the more and more expensive it gets. But we have found some extremely low budget ways to do it in the 4 and of course low 5-figure range to do this kind of thing. So yeah, super interesting. And I know we're kind of at time here, so we will let you all go and get back to enjoying your day. Thanks a million for joining us today. And as Kennedy said in closing, we certainly truly do enjoy talking about this stuff. So if you ever want to chat more, just throw some ideas at the wall and see what sticks, please do reach out, and we would be happy to continue the conversation. All right, everybody, have a wonderful day.
Thanks so much, everyone.